Just got married, now what? Hi everyone, I, male 28, married my wife, female 28, this past Friday. Which, by the way, I think is hilarious that everybody on this like Reddit thing does it like this. Male M 28, female F 28. I just think it's kind of funny. Besides the continuous cost to our wedding, we both do not have any debt. College, cars, bills, all paid off. This is amazing. This is such an ideal situation for like a newly married couple to be this technically financially free. Like you're not a slave to any sort of major corporation, which is pretty awesome. Like this is cool. This is really cool to see. So props to you two. Let's see. But I have no idea what to do about next step plan financially and would like some help. I have around $50,000 in investments, Ross and 401ks saved, about 2K in savings, wedding drained my account. Ooh. Are we supposed to merge our assets or is it best to plan to manage separately and pay bills together? So, in my perspective, like from my point of view, it makes things so much simpler if you guys just have one single joint account that you guys do everything with, right? Because then there's no confusion as to what money do we have. There's no confusion as to what was spent on what, right? And you guys could just have like a very simple rule like, hey, if it's over like $50, just text us, like text the other person to let us know that we're planning on buying something like that. Or would it be okay kind of thing, right? Out of like just like a respect towards one another. But the problem that I see with a lot of people is that when they don't have a joint account and they have like multiple separate accounts, it gets things to be very cluttered, very messy, very unclear, and potentially like a fighting issue, right? It's like because then one person is going to make some sort of accusation or be feeling like they've been wronged or something. But if you're both putting money into the same account, you're both spending money out of that same account as a household, like it'd be a lot easier. Not to mention, you two are probably doing the nasty already, so you're willing to do the nasty together, but you're not willing to share funds together. Does that make sense, like, at all? You're potentially going to have kids together, but you're not willing to share money together. Again, does that make sense at all? No, it doesn't. So just make it as simple as possible, right? Just make it as simple as possible so that you guys know what is being spent on what. You guys have like an open discussion and be like, hey, anything below like $30, we don't really gotta like talk to each other about it. But anything above it, just like text the other one quickly saying like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this thing, right? And have like a general like rule for like the budget or something like that, right? Like for example, let's say that you give yourselves like a $500 per month budget to just spend on useless junk. You guys could split that evenly or have a discussion. Okay, one person tends to spend more money, so give a little bit budget, like a higher budget to that person, and a smaller budget to the other one who's more of a cheap person. Just be very open and honest. Let's see. We also got right around $17,000 in gifts from the wedding and do not know how best to put this cash into a savings account. Do you have any tips for a savings account we should open or any to avoid? The thing is, they're doing okay with their investments, with their Ross and 401ks, but I would put that $17,000 straight into their savings account for like an emergency fund for like 3 to 6 months worth of expenses because they don't got any debt. They might as well put that into their emergency fund. Lastly, all jokes aside, looking for any suggestions, tips, or advice something you might have wished you'd done, or something you're glad you did at this stage. Much love! Exclamation point. Again, to me, from my perspective, I like the idea of making things just super simplistic, right? If you got one checking account, one savings account, right? One investment account, it makes things so much simpler, right? It's like, okay, my emergency fund is in the savings account, which is like probably like a high yield savings account. My like sinking fund for like daily expenses, monthly expenses, right, is in the checking account, right? And we're both connected to all of them, but basically with the checking account, we both got a debit card for that account and we do all of our spending through that. Or you could basically do it like if you are credit card people, which most people are not, so I don't really suggest people to actually get into credit cards because again, most people are really bad at overspending their money, like spending more money than they actually bring in. So I don't recommend people doing credit cards, but let's say that you are a good user of a credit card. You both could be on the same credit card account, right? So that you know what you guys are spending money on, so that it's like basically working as like a unit, as like a team. Because again, this is like teamwork. This is like a partnership, right? You shouldn't be like going rogue all the time when you are like, connected to one another. Like this is the thing that I've never understood. Like I've never understood why people get into marriages and then treat it like a roommate. Like, what, are you trying to say that you love your roommate so much that you want to live with them forever and have kids with them? Like what? No. No. Man. And feel free to give your thoughts if you stumble upon this. It's just to me, my perspective. Just keep it simple. Like keep it simple, stupid. You know, because then there's no like hiccups, there's no questions, there's no fights because everything is just right there. Right? It's like, oh, it'd be kind of obvious if you were like cheating because all this money would be going someplace else, kind of thing. Like, oh, why did you spend like $1,000 on like this random thing? Because like I could see it right there, kind of stuff. Or like, why didn't you let me know? Let's see. Ideally, you discuss this before the wedding, but that ship has sailed. You are likely going to get strong opinions on both sides of the aisle. I strongly believe in combining everything and treating all assets as collective, but I can see why others disagree. And at 28, you've both had some time to have seen weird, bad relationships that may lead one or both of you to have reservations about not having anything separate. That being said, the most important thing is communication. Agreed. A bank account is simply a tool for managing money. If you don't use it correctly, it doesn't really matter whose name is on it. Money is a leading cause of marital issues. Be honest and open with each other about spending and set healthy boundaries with each other. Otherwise, habits shouldn't change a lot based on the fact that you are married. Have a written budget, set 1 and 5 year goals together, and check in regularly on where things stand with your money. For the $17,000, find a high yield savings account to park it in. This is now your emergency fund. Several are paying around 5% right now. Like, agreed, right? I really like this comment because it's basically exactly what I said. And like I understand maybe why some people might feel like apprehensive of like sharing their money that they work so hard for with like another person, right? But the reality is you said I do to be partnered. Technically it's supposed to be forever in the whole marriage thing. So if you're willing to say I do to that person, shouldn't you be willing to say, yeah, I do, I'm willing to share my money with you? Because I think the old school words were that you basically did share all possessions with your partner, like literally all possessions. So, besides, you could always have like some sort of prenup written up in case something were to happen. You know, let's see. My wife and I merged our finances with one exception. We created two additional bank accounts, one for each of us, into which every month a small amount of money, same dollar amount for both, went for discretionary spending. So she could buy shoes and get her hair done at her expensive salon, and I could go out to eat for lunch instead of packing or buy things for my hobbies. That worked great until kid number two, and she went to part time, and we had to stop. But I believe a marriage works best with combined finances. It forces trust on both your parts, and there's no question on your versus my bills. Every large purchase, like vehicles, furniture, tools, etc., should be discussed together because it's both of your money, even if you make 50% more than her. Use the cash from gifts to build up your savings, and after that, start focusing on your retirement accounts. I agree with that one too. And that's also like a pretty nice idea. Like, I'd be willing to do something like that, right? It's like, oh, yeah, let's just do like this extra account just for purely our play money kind of thing. But you could also just do this in like technically like cash too. It's like, oh, let's just give each other like, $100 cash at the start of each month that we could just spend whatever we want with that money. Like not even care about it, right? Like literally just not care about it. So I like that kind of idea too. This is basically what my wife and I do. Necessary expenses are all paid through a joint account. A percentage of each paycheck goes to our personal toy accounts. Things that we do together, vacations, going out to eat, etc., get split equally between these separate accounts. But this also covers other non essential purchases so we can buy things that we want without having to discuss it. I do think that for this to work well, it's very important that your regular budget expenses is nailed down before this, including things like retirement savings. By having this well defined, it helps eliminate the potential problem of someone spending beyond the means of the couple, but also provides flexibility for the individuals. Yeah. Hmm. The thing is, I think this really depends on how the couple really communicates with one another. Because, like, if you guys can't have an honest and open discussion, one, you probably shouldn't be married. But two, like, it just gets into a weird situation because let's say that one person might have like some sort of like mental thing, right? Like maybe they're like bipolar, maybe they have some, other mental issue, maybe they're like autistic or something like that, and they just can't really manage their finances well, or maybe one of them's like dyslexic or something, right? Where like they just make mistakes when it comes to like money because they just can't like understand it or read it correctly. If that's the case, then maybe it might make sense to have like a separate account, but really at that point, it almost makes more sense to have one person like in charge of the account, but giving money to the other person that they could just spend and not really worry about it at that point. Because you're basically having to watch over them the whole time to make sure that they don't end up screwing themselves or you or the kids potentially in the future. But that's like a kind of a rare situation. So it's like to me, it's like it still makes the most sense to just be open and honest by just sharing things right from the get go. Because you know where she stands, you know where you stand. The money's going in one place to pay all the bills, and then it's like investing to your guys' retirements constantly every month, and it's giving you guys some extra fun money, etc. That's the way that